you. I just did this recently. I
I know.
reupholstered it.
It looks so good.
I still want to add like little tassels, like black tassels here as an accent,
Oh,
but I
cute.
haven't sat down to do it yet. Hi, guys, and welcome to Midweek Mindset with Aneta and I. Tonight, we are excited to talk to you about powering through the challenging times, our perception of the word resilient, and as always, jump in whenever you feel like you have something to say.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, guys. I think today's like an interesting topic because Emily messaged me and she was like, "Hey, like, what do you want to talk about today?" And I was thinking, and I was like, "Well, we can talk about resilience." And then Emily says that she kind of can be rubbed off the wrong way about that word. And, I think it's all a perspective. So I thought it would be really interesting if we both talked about our perspectives about what that word actually means to us and how we can, how it shows that we all see things through different lens. And it's always good to have another perspective on certain situations or certain meanings behind things.
Absolutely. Yeah, a few years back, I just like one day developed like this personal beef with the word resilience.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it came from like putting it on myself for so long and then having it echoed back to me, you're so resilient, you're so resilient. At a certain point, it just felt like I don't want to have to be resilient.
Mm.
So it started to really hit me in a negative way. And that's kind of like what started the whole soft girl era launch and everything. But yeah, like my whole life, I pretty much had to be resilient. So I try to reframe that now and move away from that word in my own dialogue because it gives me the ick. But what other replacement words do you use or do you guys use instead of resilient, maybe?
I'm really happy that you shared that, and I'm really happy that you shared your perspective because I didn't look at it that way. I understand where your perspective is coming from and why it may rub you the wrong way because you felt like that was your only option. Like when you were growing up, you're like, I have to be resilient. There's no room to be the soft girl era. I have to put the pants on and be the resilient person that people expect me to and pick up the slack. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that because I'm sure a lot of people can relate with having to pick up the slack and having to be the bigger person, but I guess I've never associated the word resilience with it. For me personally, when think of resilience, I think of getting back up one more time after you get pushed down. And it doesn't have to be in such a tough way. It can be in a way that works best for you. Like, for example, when you get pushed back down, it's okay to take a step back and reevaluate how you can get back up again instead of constantly forcing and pushing. Because I've been in that position as well, where it's like constantly I would have to push, I would have to be the bigger person. I guess I'm trying to think of the word, but I understand where you're coming from, and I'm happy that you shared that as well.
Yeah, I think, hopefully it resonates for more people because it's a real it's a popular word, right? And it's used a lot in like our healing practices. Um but I think sometimes, if one of our key words doesn't feel right within us, then we can explore to see, what else feels better. And an example I had just this morning, it could be resilience, it could be, just my drive and, my heart choosing my actions. But I submitted like an article to another platform, another page, and it got rejected. And
Mhm.
it was just like a culmination of where I once was and how if I had gotten that at one point in my life, it would have been just the end all. Like I'd stopped trying. But I allowed the emotions to come in and I didn't run from them. I was like, this sucks. Like this hurts.
Mhm.
Um, and I just let myself cry a little bit. And I was like, you know what? This is not the end though. I can choose another piece to submit. And I did. And and then I went and I wrote a post that I'm gonna put out tonight about it. So even those moments that challenge us, you know, if we're able to step back and look at ourselves and be like, I'm bigger than this, I think that is the encompassing of, you know, resilience and strength and what we grow to achieve.
Yeah, I have two things to say about that. Well, one, I ask you, when you were growing up, did you always use the word resilience? Like, I have to be resilient? And two, to add to what you were saying about your writing, that's actually a really beautiful thing, and there's a beautiful lesson in there because the fact that you're willing to accept the emotions and you're willing to share it with other people, you're going to encourage so many people that get back up and to know that it's okay to fall down and get back up. And it's okay to feel those emotions because if you think about it, I mean, this is probably like the goofiest example because I dropped out of math class, but I don't remember what the
Yo, same
Pythagorean
like three
theorem is.
times.
Okay, great. Great. I'm glad we're on the same page.
I was a
But
social
like,
worker, okay?
that's why we're here doing what we do. We're not math teachers. And like, you never like remembered like those math formulas, but you would remember things if there's a story associated with it. And if we're willing to share our stories with others, you know you're making a difference in somebody else's life because you're helping them. And that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So yeah, growing up, I was an older sibling, the oldest in the household. Uh Completely chaotic childhood, lots of trauma, all the nonsense. And resilient definitely was something that was planted in me. I don't know if by myself, like through just taking on those roles and wearing that pant. Um, or if over time I was being told it. I know I recognized it when I started doing my own therapy, and the therapist would be saying, "Wow, you're so resilient." And I just found that very offensive. um,
Hey.
but yeah, I mean, that's kind of the realization I came to after I had like gone through my emotions, sat with them. I went back to my journal and it was funny because I had just written like prior to getting that rejection, I was like, things are going so great and I'm so lucky and happy and grateful. And then like you know, I went right back to the journal and I was like, okay, here's what happened next, and here's how it feels. And then by the end of the page, I was able to come back to I'm worthy and I'm doing what my heart wants me to do. So a no cannot stand in the way of what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not let your setback is setting you up for a great comeback. And there, in the setbacks and in the challenges, that's where we learn to build our character and to build our strength. And uh, that's where we become who we're supposed to be because nobody really learns anything at the top. The top, it's great, but that's not where you learn. You learn in the trenches, you learn in the setbacks. And I actually never, maybe it's my English, I don't know, but I never heard the word resilience until 2 years ago. So like, it was never a thing. So I never really associated a negative meaning to it, but I completely understand where you're coming from. I think the first time somebody told me you're resilient was after I ran away from my ex-husband and I left the country and I met a stranger. I just dumped all my and he goes, "Wow, Aneta, you're really resilient." And I was like,
And
"What is"
yes, like,
and then
and
I
you
chat
know,
GPT'd, "What is resilient?" Because I didn't know.
Yeah, but like all those things are, and yours was all like such choice, like an emboldened choice that I think back on your story and I'm just so inspired all of the time. But at where you are now and the smile that is on your face and that you give to all of us, um, it's just incredible. But what do you think? If you look back, was there resilience in your childhood as well, or even adolescence?
I always knew I was different, so I was always paving a different path for myself. So I always had to try to show to my parents or my family that I'm not going to follow the traditional path. I didn't listen well. So if somebody told me what to do, I don't want to listen. I'm going to do the opposite. And I think that was a blessing in disguise because then it taught me be to create my own path without following the norm. And I guess it built that resilience in me to push past the negative, push past the criticism, because I also grew up as a dancer and there was a lot of criticism in the dance room as well. So that's where it was that I would get told, "You're not good enough, your kicks are not high enough," all of that, and I had to learn how to push past that. So, yeah, there was a lot of resilience, but I guess I just didn't know that word existed.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I always forget that you did dance, and then I'm so inspired every time you say it because I love dance. Um,
Really?
yeah, but I think that goes to show that, there's always something to overcome,
Yeah.
in our lives, no matter what it is, whether we have it harder than someone else or easier or whatever. Um, but there's something in us that I think we need to connect with in order to continue getting up.
Did I just tell you something?
Yeah.
I'm really thankful, like, that you shared that story about your writing earlier because you took a step forward and you can't say, "I wish I did." You cannot say, "I wish I tried." Instead, you did it and you figured it out, and now you know how to improve for future, and I'm really proud of you for that.
Thanks, babe. It
Yeah.
was, yeah, and honestly, I was proud of myself afterwards too, because I went through like a whole, you know, like flashback in the whole journey. Cause like if I had heard that or gotten that message a few years back, I'd have been crushed and I wouldn't have tried
Yeah.
again. And I certainly wouldn't have tried again at the same to the same person, but I let it settle and I simmered and I was like, this doesn't really mean anything. It means it didn't work for this particular thing and you can try something else. Like
Yeah,
so yeah.
absolutely. I love that. Hey, Alan. So cool. Yeah, so I think that's really good because, there's always 2 perspectives to everything, whether it's negative or positive, but I also see that you are working on changing your mindset from having a negative perspective on the word like resilience and like working on make it more positive, and that's also proof that you are able to change your mindset. You are able to rewire how you see things. And what was once negative, you're able to see positive. Like I'll give you a real life example. I've been visiting my family for the past 2 weeks, and I never really got along with my brother, and he's always been somebody that has triggered me, and just we're 2 different people. You look at us, completely different people, and it's been a test to see, like, am I gonna react and give emotional responses to the way he acts or the way that he talks to me, but I've also had to rewire my mindset and just understand that he is who he is, and the only person that I can change is myself and the way that I speak to him. Like last night, he said hi to me, and I didn't want to say hi back. And then he got upset about it. And my mom was like, Aneta, like, if he's trying to be nice, you have to be nice back. And I was like, okay. So then I like took that. And I was like, okay, and I had to like just say hi, don't be a jerk, and it's okay because I'm working on rewiring negative mindsets as well. We're all a work in progress.
Yeah, and that's what it is too. It's in those moments where we feel that resistance in us, where like we want to just walk away or ignore or even like say
Yeah.
something snippy. But it's like when we start to incorporate that mindfulness, it gives us that extra time to pause and assess and choose, you know, what we want rather than what is ingrained. And I think it's so cool that science now backs up the fact that we can rewire our brains. That gives me like just so much gust in the healing journey, just like envisioning the little changes, the little neurons making new networks.
Yeah, like we're not broken. We're not stuck in our ways. We're only stuck in our ways if we think we're stuck in our ways. We're only broken if we consistently tell ourselves that. But that's not the reality of it. And I've just been learning that like if somebody is mean to you, it's not you. You're not the problem. It's just a self-reflection of who they are. And you should never take things personal if somebody is being a jerk to you, because at the end of the day, everybody is a walking reflection, everybody's a walking mirror. So they're just mirroring to you how they feel about themselves or how they feel on the inside or at work, how they feel about that job, even. You can tell if somebody loves their job or somebody hates their job based on their attitude every day. So never take it personal, is what I've also learned.
Yeah, and I think that's a hard one to learn too, because,
Hmm.
we naturally take things personally, but when we start to look outside of ourselves and take on that mirror approach and ask, what can this teach me? What part of me is being activated by what's happening here? And we can go in from there is like the side door to success. But even with my 8-year-old daughter, like teaching her social skills at this point is so challenging because I'm trying to get her to understand as young as possible that this is the dynamic. If somebody is mean to you, it is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of
Yeah.
them. And at 8, I can only be so reserved in the advice I give because I can't send her to school being super sassy. But at the same time, it's very important to me that she learns to speak up for herself because I didn't have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And that's also breaking like those generational patterns. And that's a beautiful thing. I think it can sound a lot more complicated than what it needs to be when it comes to breaking those generational patterns. But the reality of it is what I've been learning and really pondering on these past couple of days is that if you want to break generational patterns, start by creating tiny habits every day that are combating those patterns. So, for example, if it's a generational pattern that everybody loves like sugary foods, don't eat so much sugary foods. It's tiny habits every single day. And that's essentially what's going to create what looks like the big leap. Because you can't start at step one and go to step 30. You go step one, two, three, and on. So it's also creating those tiny habits a day. And what you're doing with your daughter is, I think it's amazing. I think it's something that we all wish we had once upon a time. And that's what's so cool about like this generation now is that we are bringing in the healing. We are healing the childhood trauma, and we're being able to pass on healthy relationships and healthy habits to the kids and their kids and on.
Yeah, that's definitely the intention. Yeah, it's a really wild ride. She's 8 and other girls, their dynamics are already so crazy, so I do my best with it.
And you're doing a fabulous job, trust me, because it starts with you. That's where it starts. And I love that.
Absolutely. And, I think even if it's not something like outstanding in the family or like massive, like drug and alcohol problems, things like that, even mannerisms that we pick up from our family, they get so lodged in there that at a certain point, we have to notice that and ask, "Is that me? Or is that just my environment or what I was exposed to, what I was made to think I'm supposed to say?"
Exactly, it's true. It's also like mannerisms, like in the family. Like, for example, like my brother is a loud person, and I don't do that. He likes to slam doors for shits and giggles. I don't do that. Like that, like can honestly like makes me be like on edge. I'm like, why are we
Mhm.
slamming doors? It's also just learning that you don't have to be like that, like you don't have to always say like a lot of times growing up, people would say, "You're so stubborn, you're so stuck up, you don't listen." And that's what I would get all the time. But the reality is that I will not listen to someone if you don't have what I want. I will only listen if you have what I want. And if it can go in so many different areas. That's why I always like encourage people to find somebody that you look up to. That person may not have exactly everything you want, but they may have a few things. And what can you learn from that person? Whether it's healthy eating, creating good daily routine habits, uh, having a good social circle that supports you. What does that look like to you? Find a role model, hire a coach if you need to, but take advice from people who have what you want. If they don't have what you want, don't always recommend their advice.
I love that. That's a really good perspective, and I'm so impressed that that's just, like, innate for you. I'm gonna harness more of that. Uh, that's really cool. Like, why am I
Thanks.
gonna be giving energy to something that I know isn't going to reciprocate in the way that I need as well?
Exactly. Exactly. It's so interesting, like how like teachers would always like say, like, you don't listen, blah blah blah. It's like and I'd be like, you don't have what I want. Like, I'm not interested in being a science teacher. I'm not interested in being a math teacher. I will pass your class, do whatever I need to pass the test and class. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to take the advice that you're trying to give me because it doesn't correlate with that. And especially like as we get older, it's so important to harness your creative energy because you have an 8-year-old daughter. You know exactly what it's like to have her creative brain all around the world. Like she wants to do this, she wants to do that, idea here, idea there. And that is something that us as adults, we need to put back into us, is the creativeness at like children, because they're not that exposed to the world as much as we are at that age. So their hearts are still pure and their minds are still open. So also just having a childlike, creative, open mind.
Absolutely, and I think, that is a great tool to use when,
Mhm.
we're at a low point or we're trying to overcome something is, imagine, even just imagine a week into the future if you make this small change, what that will feel like for you. And,
Yeah.
even if you need that for motivation to build it into the routine, um, then do it. Like, I've tried many things that didn't make the cut as far as my routine, and that's okay. But because they got me on track with what does work for me and my toolkit that, I can pull on at any time. Um, but, I don't know how long they say it takes to actually get something to become a habit or become ingrained, but it's like a month or more, I think. And I've always struggled with that. So yeah, anything that like brings you into your heart center, I think is a good place to start in regard to digging out of a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how has your creative mind and how has your perspective changed since having your daughter? What was your like openness and creativeness before and then after?
So before I had my daughter, I was traveling.
Okay.
I was like, I actually worked with AmeriCorps for a while, so I was doing a lot of like stipend work and forestry work. Um, and I was super creative. I was like painting, all these different things. Then when I had my daughter, things kind of slowed down, obviously, for the first couple of years. And after that, my creativity started knocking again. It was like, okay, we need to do something. So, we obviously had a house at the time that we were fixing up and working on and planning on buying. So, like, my creative, like, energy really went into making a house a home. And even still, that's one of my favorite things to do. But after social work, I went in deep and I was like, writing is what I've always wanted to do. So, I have to go all in on it. So, and I'm happy. I'm the happiest I've ever been. So, if that inspires somebody, then I did a good job
Sure
today.
does. Of course. And thank you for sharing that because I think it's just really important to just be open, be yourself, like we don't always have to put on this mask. At work, you put on a mask. When you're in social settings, you have a mask on. And Wednesdays with you, it's just a safe space for people to come and be who they are and to take the mask off. And I love that. So I really appreciate you, Emily.
Oh, I appreciate you too, Aneta, and everyone here, and the
Yeah.
fact we've been doing this for 9 weeks now.
Yeah.
Like this has become so routine that, I look forward to it and I know that, we're gonna feel better after we leave and, feel refreshed for the rest of the week. Very
Absolutely. And
grateful.
thank you to everyone who always joins. Like, we're super thankful for you guys. And yeah, thanks for joining us for another midweek mindset. And we look forward to seeing you again next week at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yep, we'll see you then. Love you, Aneta. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.